Good day and welcome. Our guest today is the multifaceted actor, writer, voice artist, actor on television, film, and no stranger to the stage either. Our guest has over 200 accredited production credits to his growing resume. His career has earned him numerous stage awards and distinctions. Internationally, he is perhaps best known for his reoccurring role in a series as Altered Carbon, The X-Files, iZombie, and Smallville. You may recognize him from his memorable comedic turns in Best in Show or Supernatural. As a screenwriter, his credits include the critically acclaimed Canadian series Da Vinci's Inquest, Da Vinci City Hall, Intelligence, and Blackstone. Our guest today received the 2015 Jesse Richardson Award for Outstanding Original Script and, in 2017, the Governor General's Literary Award for Drama for his play Indian Arm. With a long list of credits, a growing resume in voice, TV, film, and stage, it is hard for me to pick a few of this gentleman's favorite credits, I can assure you. Please welcome me in joining Canadian icon, Hiro Kanagawa. Hiro, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show. This is amazing. Holy heck, you're
Oh,
here.
thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure entirely. I just want to mention just earlier this week, I won a Betty Mitchell Award in Calgary for my latest play, Forgiveness, which is based on the acclaimed Canadian memoir by Mark Sakamoto, who lives in Toronto. So I'm very pleased about that. Everyone involved in the production is thrilled, and hopefully we can bring it to Toronto in the not too distant future.
That would be amazing. And as I said, everybody, a growing resume for sure. Now a 2023 award to add to this. This is absolutely fabulous. So tell us more about Forgiveness. So it's based on the play. We're hopeful that it comes to Toronto. What
Mhm.
else can we expect from this?
Well, uh, many people probably already know the story because it won Canada Reads in 2018. It was already a bestseller, and then it won Canada Reads in 2018. It's about Mark's grandparents. It's a true story about his grandmother Mitsue Sakamoto and her family, Japanese Canadians, who, of course, at the beginning of World War II, were had their property confiscated and were rounded up and interned in the Japanese Canadian internment. They spent the rest of the war on a sugar beet farm outside Coaldale, Alberta. Uh, on his other side of his family, on Mark's mom's side, his grandfather, Ralph McLean, was a Canadian soldier in the Battle of Hong Kong. Um, they were, he was with the Royal Rifles, and they were the first Canadian infantry soldiers to fight in World War II. And within weeks, they were, Hong Kong fell and they were captured. And Ralph spent the remainder of the war in Japanese POW camps, first in Hong Kong and then in Japan itself, suffering, of course, tremendous deprivation, starvation, disease, brutality, and whatnot. So the story is really the story of how Mark's grandparents suffered on both sides of the war. And then after the war in the 60s, of course, Mitsue's son, Stan, and Ralph's daughter, Diane, fell in love and got married. And so the story is really, it's called Forgiveness, a gift from my grandparents, because it really is about the gift of forgiveness that was passed down to Mark's family through his grandparents, who suffered tremendously, suffered racism, suffered all kinds of injustice, but found the grace and courage within themselves to forgive and bring those two parts of the family together. And I think it's a tremendous story for all of us, especially in the divisive times that we live. This notion that we need to get past our differences to the extent that we can, and try to move forward together as a society.
And is this play currently somewhere that we can see it, or is this up and
Well,
coming?
we had a really good run earlier this year, at first in Vancouver at the Arts Club Theater here, and then in Theatre Calgary. And we're hopeful that in maybe 2025 it will go to the National Arts Center, and concurrently hopefully have a production maybe in Toronto and elsewhere. So fingers crossed.
That is amazing. Congratulations. My fingers are crossed here. Absolutely. I want to kind of go back in time with a bit with you here.
Mhm.
When did you first know that you wanted to pursue a career as an actor?
That's an interesting question. I came to acting fairly late. I started, in high school. In high school, I did participate in student plays and student films in high school and college, but it was never my main thing. In high school, in fact, see the guitar behind me. I was in rock bands and played music and wrote songs in high school and college, and that was my main thing. Um, I did always write. I went, in fact, to college with the intention of studying writing, but wound up ultimately majoring in visual art. So I spent my early adulthood as a visual artist, and kind of pivoted towards theater via performance art. Um, and as I say, I'd always been performing, either as a musician or, in student films and student theater. So um, it wasn't that big of a pivot, I guess. And when I moved to Vancouver, right around the time that the film and TV industry was really getting going, um, I just kind of naturally fell into it.
So little Hiro wanted to be a rock star and an artist, and we made this path into this amazing and fabulous actor that we all see everywhere. This is awesome.
I still want to be a rock star.
It's never too late. That's what I'm being told. It's never too late.
That's right.
So, Hiro, often actors have to tap into deep emotions and explore vulnerable parts of themselves. Can you describe a role or a performance that just had that profound impact on you emotionally?
Hmm. Probably um, something the most recent one would be a role I shot just around this time last year for a Canadian series, Family Law.
Okay.
It's a great little series shot here in Vancouver. Um, now, and that was season 3 that we had shot. And unfortunately, it hasn't. I believe they've just started airing season 2 here in North America. So it will be a while before you get to see my episode here. But it concerned a man, me, married to a woman who's suffering from early onset dementia.
Oh, wow.
And, it's the series is about a family law firm. So the basic dilemma in this episode was that my wife wants to have a medically assisted death before she loses all of her faculties. But under the current, under the current laws surrounding medically assisted death, it's kind of a catch-22 in that you can't have medically assisted death for dementia um, until you're really suffering. But if you're really suffering, you no longer have the mental capability to make that call, right? So you have to try and create some kind of living testament before, and so there was, and the law may have changed now or is in the process of changing, but it was, and I got to shoot the episode with a dear friend of mine, Jillian Fargy, who I've known for decades. So that was an emotional an opportunity for us, Jillian and I, to tap into our own mortality, because we're getting to be that age, obviously. But yeah, as an actor, those are kind of gifts, those are the opportunities that you really look forward to and keep you going, keep you committed to the craft.
When you did this role and you were talking about how we're facing our own mortality, as you had put it, what did when you did that production, what did you really learn about yourself, or what did you teach yourself knowing that you had to face this piece?
Well, as it turns out, I actually was around that time. I had actually the previous 2 years had a cancer scare myself. And so leading up to the 2 years leading up to that, I had actually thought that I might be dying, because I had some blood tests come back and they were very suspicious. And then I had to have a biopsy and an MRI, all of which turned out to be negative, but it was also during COVID. So, I think there was some delay in getting the tests and, scheduling the biopsy and then subsequently the MRI and so on. So for about 2 years, this dragged on for about 2 years. And for about 2 years, I was unsure if maybe I did have cancer or, I mean, I felt fine, but the blood tests were saying otherwise. So I was facing the possibility of a much earlier demise than I had anticipated. I mean, my grandmother lived to be 101 on my dad's side. Both my parents are, my mom's 90 now. My dad's 88. I have an uncle who's 96. Everyone, they're all Japanese living in Japan. So, they're a very long, long lived country to begin with. But our family, especially, there's a longevity gene in our family, it would seem. So for me, at my age, it just didn't make any sense. And so, yeah, I was thinking a lot about my own mortality. My kids are teenagers, and what would happen to them, all these questions I had. So it was an opportunity for me to really tap into those experiences that I was going through and put them into the role.
Well, thank you for sharing that
But,
with
to get back to your question, what did I learn? I mean, I did learn, Chris, that death doesn't really scare me. Like, I was pretty zen about dying. Like, if it was going to happen, I was okay with that. What I really dreaded was having to tell my mom, having to tell my kids, those are the things that I did not want to have to deal with. But my own death, like, I mean, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. And in the end, I was pretty okay with, well, if it has to be now, it has to be now. I was going to make my peace with that. But having to tell my mom, man, I did not want to do that.
what do you think it is about having to disclose that with our parents and our children that was that hindrance where it was like, that's worse or scarier than what you're actually going through? What do you think that
Well,
has
you don't
been?
want to hurt people, right? And I just feel like it would have devastated my mother, and I don't want to be the source of that. Like, she should get to live out her life in peace. And no, being a parent myself, you understand, like, no parent wants to lose a child.
Mhm.
I mean, that's unnatural. It's unnatural that your children would pass away before you. Um, Probably every parent would give up their life for their child if they could. So having to tell your mother that you're gonna die before she does, that's I don't wish that on anybody.
I really do appreciate you sharing that with us, and it's unfortunate you had to go through that, especially during those times with COVID where there were longer wait times and no one really knew the uncertainties of it. But you're on the other side of it. It was
Yeah, it
negative.
all worked
It's
out.
fabulous. You're here. This is great. You're going to be 110 for sure. Out past everybody. It's going to be amazing.
Hopefully. Yes, no, no, it all worked out, and we can be lighthearted about it now. So no worries.
Good. Well, I want to ask you about your writing. You're a very accomplished actor. You're a very accomplished voice artist, stage writing, and you also got into writing. But when you were, little hero and you were writing your songs, how did you find this infinity for writing alongside of acting?
I don't know. I've always been a good writer. I don't know where that came from. I remember in grade six, I grew up in Guelph, Ontario. I remember in grade six, I wrote, we had some assignment, write a story or whatever, and I wound up writing like a 20 some odd page novella, you know, and I got like A plus 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 on it. And I'll tell you what, one of the reasons I got such a good grade was not, I don't think it was the quality of the writing itself necessarily, but me and my buddies who were all, we were all just like sixth grade kids playing hockey, skateboarding, playing baseball, and just goofing around. And the fact that I had written this thing inspired them, you know, to put some effort into writing, because we were all competitive with one another, And
Yeah.
so I think that's what the English teacher appreciated is like, like all these boys who, didn't usually give a rat's ass about English class, suddenly they were like turning in these masterpieces of sixth grade literature because Kanagawa went and, wrote a novella.
Had to outbeat each other. That was the competitive streak to it.
Yeah, yeah.
So with your writing, have you ever written anything specifically with the intention of acting in it?
Uh, that's a crazy. It's the interesting thing. Like many writers do write roles for themselves, um, and especially writers of color. I think write roles for themselves because they don't have. They write roles for themselves that they don't ordinarily have the opportunity to play,
Mhm.
right? But for whatever reason, I've never felt the urge to write roles for myself. Um, Part of it is because I enjoy so much seeing other actors interpret my work. And I just much prefer what other actors can bring to it than, what I myself would do. So, uh, because what other actors do is like, it's just so surprising. And, that I get a real charge out of that. I mean, if I do it, I'm just going to do what I expect, right? I'm not going to surprise myself. Well, maybe I will,
Yeah.
but so yeah, I've never actually specifically gone out and written myself a role.
Oh, neat. And with your writing, do you find yourself exploring the consistent themes? Do you ever say, hey, I've written too many of this, I'm going to try that now? Or do you kind of fall into that, I know how to do this and I'm really good at it, and that's kind of where I'm going to keep?
Well, I write. If you look over my my plays and my body of work, it's pretty diverse. I think my first play, Tiger of Malaya, is a war crimes based on a war crimes trial. My next play is a Christmas play, but it has elements of science fiction with like UFOs and Sasquatch and
Wow.
and so on. And then the GG winning play, Indian Arm, is an adaptation of an Ibsen play set in modern times, and then Forgiveness,
Mhm.
and so on. So they're all pretty diverse. I guess the common theme is that um, I do want the plays to reflect the reality that I live in, and the reality that I live in is a multicultural society that is organized around race hierarchy. That's the world that we live in. So race hierarchy and the relationship of people who are not white to the culture of whiteness. I mean, that is kind of a subtextual theme that I think that runs through all of my plays. Um, and then, I just recently it just recently dawned on me that every one of my plays has ghosts, and that the living interact with ghosts. Just as and it's a matter of fact thing. Ghosts exist, and they speak to us, and they communicate with us, and so I guess would indicate, you know, a core belief of mine, which is that yes, I do believe that there are other realms of existence, and that they can teach us things, and that we can communicate with them and learn things from them. So that's a component of everything I write.
I think when you get into this creative avenue and you're able to write with no limitations and anything is possible in these worlds, that it just allows that freedom for the creativeness to flow through without having any types of restraints. And I love how you incorporate other realms and spirits and ghosts into your plays. It's absolutely fabulous. It's this neatness of writing where when you talk about your stage writing, it's almost like you know exactly what to do, how to do it. But what do you find some of the challenges are with your scripts versus stages?
Like you're talking about screenplays versus stage plays?
Yeah, well, some know that you actually have written a couple of scripts as
Mm-hmm.
well, and screen.
Well, with film and TV scripts, the main challenge is getting them produced. You know, like I haven't actually had, aside from the writing that I did for Da Vinci's.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had two screenplays optioned, but never greenlit. So it's a multi-year process, and it's an exceedingly frustrating process. I have one now that we're very hopeful about, but we'll see. So, but I think that ultimately theater can be a more expressionistic medium um, in terms of the words. Film, when you break it down, is not really. I mean, we think of film as being a dialogue-driven
Mhm.
medium, but it really isn't. It's visually driven. Um, and if you were to just take all the dialogue in a film script
Right.
and write them down on a page, you would be. I think most people who aren't familiar with film scripts and having them broken down like that would be astonished at how few words of dialogue there actually are. You know, especially in like an action driven movie, or
Oh, yeah.
but even in movies that seem pretty talky, right? And you go, well, this movie's all dialogue, but if you break it down, there's far, far, far fewer words in a film than there are in a stage play. A stage play really is dialogue driven. The dialogue drives all the action, all the subtext, all the conflict. Um, so, in that sense, writing for the stage allows me to do the beautiful writing that I like to do. Film is a very different medium. I mean, they seem similar, but there's fundamental differences that are important.
Well, good. It's very unique when we peel that curtain and realize, Arnold Schwarzenegger had 26 lines in the first Terminator.
Is
That
that right?
seems,
Yeah. So there
yeah,
you go. Yeah. These,
and it seems like he was talking and he was everywhere. But to your point, it was intention, it was subtext, it was the walking, it was the movements. Yeah, it was insane. But I love how you said that their theater allows you to have a different type of expression, more dialogue driven than film. So I want to ask you here, outside of your writing and outside of your acting and your voice work, what other hobbies do you pursue that contribute to your personal growth?
hmm Well, having kids, my son's 17 now, my daughter's 14. Probably over the last 10, 12 years, much of my time has been spent with them, and whatever they're into, I've been into too, and luckily they were both athletes and they really got into sports, and I always loved sports. So my son's become quite a good football player, And so for many years, I was an assistant coach on his teams. Um, and, it's kind of a transition point now because now he's 17. He's entering his last year of high school. I mean, they're grown men now, and they wouldn't listen to me even if I tried. So I haven't coached on his teams the last couple of years. But for many years, yeah, a lot of my time was spent on the sports field, either actively coaching or just watching, right? Because that's what kids need. Kids need to be seen above all, by their parents especially, And here in BC, I can't, I can't, I can't tell you the hundreds of hours in the pouring rain watching 8-year-olds play football or soccer or lacrosse or what have you. I mean, it can seem pretty soul crushing at times, but you know what? I would not take back any of that time. Those are magical times for me. And so that took up a lot of my time over the last 10, 12 years. I myself also play softball. I still do that in a co-ed beer league. So, that keeps me young.
Good. I love that. I love I'm out in the rain with you, and sometimes it's just, but you wouldn't change it for the world when you look back on it. So, Hiro, where can people learn more about you? Are you on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook? Where can people find you?
Yeah, on Instagram and Twitter, my handle is Hiro Kanagawa TV. And I'm also on Facebook. Yes,
Fabulous.
that's where people can find me. Yeah.
And Hiro, what is something people tend to misunderstand about you the most?
I think people have this impression that I'm very serious, intellectual kind of person, which, I know that they get that impression from my plays, which are thoughtful, and from the roles that I get cast. I often get cast as intelligent authority figures, and so I think there's an assumption that I'm that way as well. And I'm actually a pretty goofy guy when it comes down to it.
That's good.
Yeah.
And if you had a magic wand, Hiro, what's something that you would change about the world as of tomorrow? If you could just,
Well, as I alluded to earlier in our conversation, we live in very divisive times. A lot of that is for no good reason, I think. And there's so much mistrust now politically, between the left and the right. And it's very hard for us to move forward as a society or as a nation um, until those rifts are healed. So I would wave my magic wand and get rid of all of that for sure.
and I have time for one last question for you, Hiro, and it's what makes Hiro smile?
Stupid jokes. I love stupid jokes.
Nice. I love it. You're right up there with the duck went to the park and asked the guy for grapes and lemonade. That's all the time I have for you today,
All
Hiro.
right.
Certainly appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on for Coffee with Chris. Everyone out there, get on the internet, find them, Google them, do whatever you have to do. Fingers crossed for your play. Forgiveness to come here to Toronto for sure. Remember to smile to inspire everybody and have a fantastic day. Thank you.